Hey guys, Josh here. Of course, it's the British Grand Prix this weekend, and we thought we'd celebrate by counting down, in our opinion, the top 10 greatest British F1 drivers of all time. Let's start off then with number 10, and it is one of the most eccentric, certainly, of all time. It's James Hunt, of course, famous for winning the 1976 World Championship with that brilliant season and brilliant rivalry with Austrian driver Niki Lauda. A fantastic season, and just remembered for James Hunt's willingness just to carry on. I mean, it was remembered, of course, famously for Lauda, of course, and him coming back from this crash. But, James Hunt still kept on plugging away. Had a lot of downs in that season, disqualification in Spain. Our original disqualification anyway, of course, that would be later overturned. But, a fantastic season of him picking up so many wins and so many great drives. And, of course, the last race in Japan was a dramatic finale. He was willing to risk it when Niki Lauda wasn't. And, you can argue both ways. You could probably say he's a bit silly for, risk and all that. But he certainly put his life on the line. And he'd stop at nothing, basically, to win that World Championship. And that's exactly what he did. And he didn't really need to do anything else. He had a couple of bad seasons in 77 and 78 before having a very unsuccessful time with Wolff in 1979, and then of course joining Murray Walker in the commentary box, one of my favourite pairings of all time in terms of commentary teams, and of course one of my favourite drivers of all time as well, James Hunt, much love racing driver, and certainly had quite a few controversial events, but certainly one of the greatest of all time. Let's move on to number 9 on our list, and that is Mike Hawthorn. Of course, the first ever British racing driver to win the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship, of course with Ferrari as well. With an Italian team, it was kind of unheard of at that time for a British driver to come in and win the championship, despite only picking up, may I point out, one win at the French Grand Prix, in places all season.
His season didn't really get underway too well, but he really just picked it up and cranked it up in the second half of the year. A fantastic season for Mike Hawthorn. And, definitely going to be remembered, of course, as the first ever Drivers' World Champion to come from Britain, and, of course, kind of set off the trend for British drivers winning the Formula 1 Drivers' Championship. Of course, throughout the 1960s, the majority were British, so great stuff from Hawthorn, very deserved of number 9 on our list. Now we move on to Jenson Button, who is in at number 8, of course, the current McLaren driver, but, of course, has raced for Brawn, of course, where he won the 2009 Drivers' Championship win, of course, also raced with, BAR as well, and, of course, Williams as well, of course, where he started his career in, 2000, had 273 starts, won 15 times, 50 podiums, 1,200 career points, 8 pole positions, and 8 fastest laps. It's a brilliant career for Jenson Button. You could argue he deserves more, and probably deserves more than one World Championship. Certainly in his prime, he was one of the fastest drivers out there. Just look at 2009, just look at 2011. Absolute phenomenal seasons for him. He's fully deserved of, his slots at number 8. Let's move on to number 7 then, and another driver that only won one World Championship was Damon Hill. Very deserved, I think, of number 7 on our list. Very popular, of course, amongst fans. Of course, now pundits on Sky Sports F1. Had a fairly short career by kind of 90s standards. For his career ranged from 92 to 1999. He drove for teams such as Brabham, Williams, Arrows, and Jordan. And, of course, the most famous, of course, driving for Williams and winning that 1996 World Championship. But let's be honest, he probably should have won the 1994 Championship as well. That controversial collision at the 1994 Australian Grand Prix, certainly in my mind, was done on purpose by Michael Schumacher just to win the championship. And I think that Damon Hill, should have won that, and he should have really been a double world champion. But still, of course, did win the 96 championship with little controversy. Of course, had Jacques Villeneuve as a teammate, very tough rookie, but he did manage to see him off, and sadly was dropped just out of nowhere, ready for 97 in favour of Heinz Harald Frentzen. So it's probably a bit like Button. Hill probably could have had at least another championship, but I think he's still going to be very pleased with that one championship win. Now we move on to his dad then, who was in at number 6 on our list, of course, Graham Hill. Of course, his career ranged from 1958 to 1975, so much longer than his sons. He raced for teams such as Lotus, BRM, Brabham, and of course his own team, Hill. He had 176 starts, 14 wins, 36 podiums,
and of course is famous for winning 2 Drivers' World Championships in '62 and '68. Of course, had some thrilling rivalries with the likes of Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, all those kind of drivers that were kind of around then in kind of the '60s and of course early '70s as well. Graham Hill, of course, tragically lost his life in 1975. But will certainly, I think, go down as one of the greatest British racing drivers of all time, of course, and also just to cap it all off, won Le Mans as well in 1972. So Graham Hill in at number 6. In at number 5, it's Nigel Mansell. Onto another very popular British racing driver. His career spanned, of course, from 1980 to 1995, of course, with that 1993 gap year, which, of course, he amazingly won the IndyCar Championship in. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, going back to his Formula 1 career, raced with huge teams such as Lotus, Williams, Ferrari, McLaren. So basically raced for, pretty much all the big Formula 1 teams at that time. And of course, it was with Williams that he managed to win the 1992 championship, and would have probably won more, let's be honest, had it not been for 2 men, Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, because those two, of course, were pretty dominant in the late 80s, and of course, I know PK as well was in there. It was probably arguably the strongest field, I think, in the late 80s to early 90s, certainly in terms of driver talent. Of course, the rivalry between Prost and Senna, the rivalry between PK and Mansell, of course, at Williams as well, was absolutely dramatic. He could have won the 1986 title as well, but I think he'll still be happy to just win that 1992 championship, to be honest. Of course, was unlucky not to be retained for 93, which he probably would have won, or at least having a very, very good rivalry, of course, with Alain Prost, who, of course, did actually win that 93 championship. So, I think Nigel Mansell certainly very, very deserved, and probably one of the most, probably if not the most popular British racing driver of all time. Now we move on to number 4 in our list, and it is Stirling Moss. Amazingly, unlike everyone else on this list, he's failed to win a World Drivers' Championship, but hear me out here. He did win 1/4 of the races he entered, and of course those were 16 out of the 66. Pretty amazing stuff, I think, from Stirling Moss. Was so unlucky not to win, the World Drivers' Championship. I mean, just look at this stat. He finished second in, just so many, championships. So unlucky to win so many times and then just not be able to quite get there. I mean, he came second in 1955, in 56, in 57, in 58, then he was third in 59, 60 a day.
At the end of that year, with Lotus, it's just incredible how Moss didn't win the championship. Undoubtedly, I think this kind of proves that even if you don't win a world championship, you can still be regarded as one of the best drivers from your country, and certainly in my opinion, that's what Stirling Moss fully well deserves. In at number 3, it's Lewis Hamilton, of course the current Mercedes driver and double world champion. He's raced 156 times, of course, was taking 37 wins and 78 podiums. Of course, he's raced for 2 teams, McLaren and Mercedes. And, of course, he's currently leading the 2015 World Drivers' Championship as well. Is likely to pick up a 3rd title this year, maybe on course as well for a 4th and possibly even 5th title later on. He's definitely, in my mind, going to go down as the most successful British racing driver. Will he be the greatest? That's going to be up to debate, of course, in a few years' time. The only blot on my mind why he's not number 1 or number 2 it's just those kind of few years at McLaren where he had really kind of off seasons. He was beaten by Jenson Button comprehensively. He had a really kind of pointless feud with Felipe Massa in 2011, which was just not needed. Fair enough if it's over the World Drivers' Championship, but if it's just over kind of 5th, 6th in the standings, really it's really not worth getting worked up over. So I think that's the only block on his record, and the kind of the stuff you can argue. I don't know if he cheated in 2009. You can argue that either way, but taking that out of the equation, still Lewis Hamilton, one of the best racing drivers of all time, and possibly will be when he finishes his career. In at number 2, then, this was very, very close. I really could have, put him in number 1, but I just decided at the last minute just to keep him in number 2 spot, and that, of course, is Jim Clark. Probably, in my mind, probably one of the most popular kind of, 1960s kind of driver. Even though there was the likes of Graham Hill and Jackie Stewart, that I always thought for Jim Clark. Kind of shy character, but I think it was very, very popular amongst fans, and still has a great following now. Even of course, sadly lost his life
in 1968, of course, only being able to start 72 races, but despite this winning 25 of them, that's a fantastic, start to win ratio. Basically, 1 in every 3 races he started, he won. Of course, won the 63 and 65 World Drivers' Championship, and let's be honest, would have probably won more, would have probably been a 3 or 4 World Championship, winner. But sadly, of course, the F2 race in 1968 sadly ended all hope of that, and certainly, I think, one of one of motorsport's darkest days. Definitely. But Jim Clark's, his memory is always going to live on, his legacy as well. A fantastic racing driver, and you could have put him in number 1. But in number 1 spot, it is the legend himself, Sir Jackie Stewart, triple World Championship winning driver, of course, the only of its kind from Britain, winning in 1969, 1971 and 1973, where he raced for BRM, Marta, March and Tyrrell. Of course, his last race was in 1973 as well, when, of course, the year he won the championship. He stopped because of safety reasons, but this is another reason why he's my number 1. In terms of safety, what he's done for the sport is absolutely incredible. He's probably the most influential driver ever in terms of safety of the cars, safety of the tracks, and just general safety in kind of the pit lane, and just, all around Formula 1. He's done a fantastic job, and in my mind, is the best ambassador for British racing racing, certainly. Sir Jackie Stewart, a legend of Formula 1, winning 27 times, getting 43 podiums and 360 career points. A fantastic season for Sir Jackie Stewart. Career for Sir Jackie Stewart. But anyway, he is my number 1. Let me know, guys, down in the comment section below, who is your number 1 greatest British F1 driver ever. Of course, your opinion could be very, very different from mine, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of these I could have really put in different places. It was so tough to choose between them, but I have made my decision, and hopefully you guys can make yours. And if you do, put it down in the comment section below. Be sure to leave a like then, and also let me know what do you want me to see. What do you want to see from me in terms of any more top 10s? Maybe I could do a top 10 French drivers, or I don't know, top 10 German drivers. Just kind of think of an interesting country I could do. Where there's quite a few drivers who are very, very close on pace. A lot like Britain, certainly the biggest country, the country which produced the biggest racing drivers, I think, in terms of talent and just the overall spread, I think, was fantastic. There's basically a British racing driver in every decade who just completely impressed, and we'll have to wait and see who will that be in the 2020s and 2030s. Only time will tell. Anyway, until then, see you guys next time. Goodbye.